interactiveness of the session. But we appreciate all of you coming back. And we decided, since we're down to a rather small group, that we would just leave it with this group instead of going into breakouts, because you got to have enough input from folks to help. So where we want to start is just going through the attendees group. If you could, in 60 to 90 seconds, just describe for us what your urgent and real leadership challenge is. Just enough to describe to the group what you're facing so we know a little bit about it. So why don't we start at the top? Kathy, you want to start with us?
I'll start.
Brian, you want to start? Okay, thank you.
I'll start. My challenge is, how do we ensure team evolution, development, and that our team is continually getting better, our leadership team, during this time of remote engagement, remote work, remote meetings?
Excellent. Let's see. Jerry, you want to go next?
Sure. So how to develop true empathy with a sense of urgency that bridges the gap and develops relationships with all stakeholders when we can't be with them in person.
Excellent. Marcus, are you summarizing? Thank you. I really appreciate that. I started trying to grab Brian's and I was like, okay. You want to go next. And please tell me if I misspell your name. Is it Latia?
It's Latia, but you can say Latia if it's easier. Hey, Marcus. So my question is, it's about really team specific, but it's how do we maintain staff morale and productivity towards the end of the school year, especially given that we're in this distance learning phase right now?
Okay. Very similar challenges. Kathy, you want to go?
How do we continue outreach with what's going on? You know, we're up here in Lake County where we're still not anywhere near the rest of the state as far as being open or things happening. More and more events that we would do outreach in have been canceled. It's a numbers game in many ways, but we need to increase our, our reach into a very, I work in Gary. It's a very low poverty, area, and yet I don't think our reach has been what we could. Our potential is so great, and we're just not seeing, even with as much outreach as we did, and we did a lot. How do we do that now and still try to maintain?
Excellent. Wendy, would you like to share with us? I know I got your message earlier. I know you don't have a camera, but.
Right, and I have 2 small dogs, so if they bark, I apologize now. So it's my limit is getting teachers more involved with our students, getting to know them like on a first name basis, to be able to have that student feel like they're important and they're not forgotten. Because I did a survey of some of my students and I did get feedback that a couple of them felt like their teachers were not there for them.
We've experienced that as well. Thank you. And tell me if I misspell, is it Kalila?
Yes, I'm a little concerned now about starting school and having social distancing and creating a schedule where both my teachers are teaching in person and remotely at the same time, and them being having good morale and being able to keep the students engaged both in the classroom and remotely. when students were learning remotely last term, they didn't do as well as I had expected. And hopefully this will help with being both in person with social distancing and remotely.
Excellent. And then Justin, I know you came in a little bit late, but what we're doing is just a 60 to 90 second on a real and urgent leadership challenge that you have.
For me, it's student engagement. I'm really worried about the students who are most suffering from this, which tends to be students who come from disadvantaged backgrounds and lack of resources and things like that, which tends to be most of our students a lot of the time. And I don't want e-learning or any version of it to be watered down to where we're giving them, you know, less than what we would have normally. And then they get a diploma and then they go on and it's not what it could have been. So I guess making sure instruction is rigorous enough to prepare our students for after high school is kind of my biggest concern right now.
Yeah, we share that as well. Okay, so Marcus has done, if you have your chat box open, you can see the little summaries that he's typed of everyone's, just a very high recap. Brian's concerned about team development, continuous improvement as it relates to being virtual with some of our staff. Jerry's challenges on how to maintain true empathy and urgency with stakeholders in our relationships virtually. Latia is staff morale and productivity with distance learning. Kathy said she's concerned about continued outreach as it relates to the pandemic and needing to social distance. Wendy is having to get the teachers more involved with our students and making sure that they know them on a first name basis and that they feel important. Kalila is concerned about social distancing and creating a schedule for in-person and remote courses for teachers, and then engagement and morale. Justin's a student engagement and continuing that. So as a group, if you would put in the chat box which one, because we only have time to focus on one, which one do you vote for that we should focus our time in this session? So you can just put the name of the person who suggested it. So we're going to give you about 60 seconds to do that. All right, it looks like Kalila wins. So you get to be the challenge owner. So just to recap hers, she was concerned with starting school with social distancing and creating a schedule for in-person and remote courses for all teachers. Engagement and morale are difficult with remote learning. So the next step in this process is we all will formulate questions for her, and then she will answer those. So we're going to take no more than 5 minutes. I'm going to suggest with this small of a group, we take no more than 3, but just grab a sheet of paper and make as many questions, the more the better. And these need to be powerful questions. So keep in mind, we're not looking for closed-ended questions. We're not making suggestions to her for solutions. We are just on a collection of information. We are digging in deep to her challenge. So if you would just take the next 3 minutes and make as many questions as you can think of. Okay, we got one more. You'll finish up your question. Okay, so who's comfortable with going first and asking Kalila a question, and then she will respond to that question?
I'll go first.
Okay, Brian?
Kalila, what does success look like?
Success would look like students being engaged, earning credits, teachers excited still about educating students, students still excited about being educated, and us still getting graduates, of course.
And if you have the same question, feel free to pop in and say same question. That way we kind of know where people's thought process is. Miss Kathy?
Do you believe, or do you have a plan for your needier students to make the adjustment with the remote and part-time classroom situation that we're facing?
How might you reword that into a powerful question rather than a yes or no?
I didn't think it was. Okay, I'm lost.
Okay, what are the plans for my remedial students?
Basically, the most needy students are the ones that are going to probably disappear the quickest because they just don't do well with the adjustment between, okay, we were online, oh, that didn't work because I didn't like it because I don't know how. And then you get the, okay, now I can go, but I gotta schedule myself in, and that's too much for me to deal with. I'm real concerned about and I know you are, reaching those students.
So what you might ask is, what have you already tried to engage those students who are?
Okay, what have you already tried? Yeah.
Well, last term, we were completely remote. And I didn't have a lot of success with the remediation courses. So this term, I am making them in person for the students so that they can be a little bit more successful. The ones they did not really log on, it was more packet based, and it just wasn't successful. So for English 1, English 2, and Math A, they're going to be in person with social distancing, wearing masks, following CDC guidelines.
So am I understanding in person 4 days a week?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I had to kind of, we did a survey yesterday, and we surveyed students and found out that about 60% wanted to be in person and the other 40% wanted to be remote. I had asked the teachers before I did the survey, did they feel comfortable teaching both ways, teaching while they're in the class and teaching remote at the same time? They told me they were. One of my staff members shared a video on of what he had gotten from a conference that he went to about how to successfully do that. He shared it with the staff, so they're reviewing that now. Hopefully we have all the materials we need to make it happen. But starting Monday, we're going to be both remote and in person at the same time in the classroom. So we're going to hope that works. We have had our building walk through to see what our capacity is. And when I counted, we could have about 62 students in the building. I'm at a small Excel center. We only have 150 students. So when I counted the number of students who said they wanted to come in person, it was less than 62. And some of them were afternoon and some of them were morning. So I don't think I'm going to run into problems with not having enough space for the ones that want to come in person. We have social distance the rooms, have them facing forward. We have masks available, thermometers if we need to check temperatures, gloves, hand sanitizer. We have a cleaning schedule in place. I contacted my cleaning company and I have extra cleanings in the evening. I had to pay a little bit more, but so I think we're going to be ready to roll. We'll see.
Alila, what impact is this challenge having on the school?
I think just stretching the teachers a little bit, making them be a little bit more innovative. It's having the students learn about technology, which they need to learn about for college anyway, a lot of them, so that's good. Some of them still don't feel comfortable with it and they prefer to be in person. But I mean, of course, it's stretching us all, making us think of different ways of doing things. We're going to be recording all our Zoom sessions that they're going to be doing both in person and over Zoom so that people who miss it can go back and review it. So yeah, we're just trying different things, and hopefully this will be more successful than last term. Although last term wasn't bad, we got 22 graduates, but we didn't have as much engagement as I wanted amongst the rest of the student body. So hopefully this hybrid will work for us.
Others?
Hi, Kalila, it's Jerry.
Hi, Jerry.
Hello. I was wondering what concerns you the most, the teachers' burnout? And if so, what can you do to help them with that?
I'm a little concerned with teacher burnout. Not as much since we did have a little bit of a break. Not a lot of a break, a little break. And I do have 2 new teachers, so they're pretty enthusiastic about getting started. Hopefully we don't scare them away with this new learning technique that we're going to try with the both in class and online. But yeah, I'm just going to try to be enthusiastic, have a lot of meetings, you know, talk with the staff, gauge how they're doing, gauge their mental health, had a lot of personal one-on-one meetings with them, gauge our students, how they're doing, and just try to keep a pulse on what's going on with my culture and try to keep it as positive as possible.
Others?
Kalila, my question is, what evidence do you have that suggested that engagement and morale have been difficult during distance learning?
The only real evidence that I had was that usually about 70% of my students earn credit. About 30% earn credit in term 5, and most of them were my graduates. I had some classes where I had one person earn credit in the whole class during that term. So that signaled to me we had an issue. Yeah, and so I knew we had to change some things if we could. If the governor said we had to shelter in place, of course, we would have had to do the same thing over, but we do have at least social distancing. So yeah, we're gonna try it this way.
Leila, how do you plan to monitor instruction? How do you plan to monitor virtual instruction to ensure that those students who are not coming in are still getting the same education?
Well, they're gonna be doing it in the classroom. I can do classroom monitoring, or I can just be in my office and go online. But
Makes sense.
sit in the classes because they're gonna be getting the same instruction. I can just go on the computer to see that they can see visually as well as the people in the class. But other than that, I can actually go to each class because they will be teaching and do my normal evaluations. I also, if I feel that somebody's complaining, students are unhappy with what they're getting online, I can also go online and see visually what the quality of the education is. But hopefully we have the technology to be able to pull it off. That's what I'm most worried about, because we don't have a lot of webcams. So they're talking about rigging up computers here and computers there and while they're teaching. So we'll see.
How will you react if you see something that is concerning?
Students or with staff or?
Yes.
Having conversations, of course, private conversations, professional development. How can we get you where we need you to be? Teachable moments, those sort of things. Just a lot of engagement. No surprises, making sure the teachers know how I'm feeling about things while I'm feeling that way the whole time, and not at the end of the 6 months or so and saying, well, you did this wrong or differently, but definitely communicating, open, honest, transparent communication with students and staff.
What have you
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I had something similar to Justin's question. My question was, what platform are you thinking about and why? And was it a success last term for your online teaching?
Oh, Zoom.
You just use Zoom?
I think Zoom is really good. I think our main issue is that we weren't able to get in front of the students before it happened. Zoom was new for them. We tried our best to explain it virtually, how to get on, whereas now if they need to, they can come in the building with social distancing and we can try to help them get on. It just wasn't a lot of time to prepare them, whereas now I think they're more prepared. But Zoom was a really good format. I thought Zoom was an excellent format to teach distance learning. So we're gonna be using Zoom and Google Classroom. Last time we used Odysseyware, but the teachers are feeling more comfortable using Google Classroom as to grade the papers from the remote learners and stuff like that. So we're going to use both of those.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Khalil, it sounds like I came in like during the middle of your present discussion. Sorry, I had an emergency call. It sounds like you're part of the leadership team at your school. Is that right?
I'm the director, yes.
Oh, you're the director, sorry. Naive question. So you were talking about some of the newer teachers. What would you do to ensure that they stay motivated and that they keep that zest throughout the year?
I'm actually having two of my other teachers. I still have two of my humanities teachers in the building. They just went to other positions. So I'm gonna have them mentor the two new teachers, make sure that they have their curriculum all of the materials that they had to be successful, and partnering them with them to make sure that they have a nice, strong, steady start, and to also, if they want to talk to them about any issues that they may be having and they don't feel like talking to me, they can do that with the other 2 humanities teachers that are in the building.
Kalila, what metrics do you think should be used to measure success? I'll expand a little bit because I'm, in the traditional Excel Center format, we've got all these targets and numbers we want to hit, like credits per student, graduates. How are we going to know if we're successful?
Honestly, for term 5, which when we did the first remote run, the only thing I was really interested in as my metric was graduates. And I was like, if we have graduates, I'm going to say that we did pretty good for our first run through. This time, I'm more concerned with overall number of credits per student. Like if I have 150 students, I want at least 90 of them or 80, close to 100 of them to earn credit. That's going to be kind of my metric. Whereas last time I had about 55 students earn credit. I'm just hoping more students are able to earn credit toward graduation. So my goal this time is not so much to graduate as many people, but to have more people proceeding toward graduation.
To what do you attribute the decrease in engagement?
Just the new format, being online, not being comfortable with being online. Some people didn't have internet access. We didn't have hotspots to give them. So they had paper packets, and the packets were huge. If you looked at them, you'd be like, oh, never mind. So we had some people on paper, some people doing it totally remote. And so just not having enough time to prepare. It's not always easy when something new is being thrown at you and you just, you weren't ready for it. And so.
So what have you tried to positively impact engagement?
We've just been, last term, my boss, Corey, wanted us to reach out a certain number of times per week. We were killing it. We were reaching out 10 times more than the number that he wanted. We were reaching out something like 2,000 times a week to students, to 150 students, by email, calling, texting, whatever, email through Synergy. We were really reaching out, talking to students, trying to keep them engaged, trying to work with them. So we plan on doing the same thing, increasing the amount of contacts that we have with students, checking on them regularly. So hopefully that'll have a positive impact.
How will the increase in contact positively impact the challenges with delivering?
It helps some because some people were having problems with things like technology and getting on. Those students did a lot better than the ones who just needed motivating. Some of them never really did get started, trying to motivate them, let's do it, you can do it, and let's get started. And a lot of that, and I don't think that worked as effectively as, and when we did the survey, a lot of those students who I was having trouble with prompting to get started online said, I want to come in person, but that didn't work for me. Can I come in person? So the people that were successful online, they said remote. We want to do it remotely again. So we'll see.
How will you react if you run into a capacity issue with people who want to be in person?
I haven't, according to the survey that I took. I took a survey yesterday, and we weren't near capacity. And that I had less than say I could have 62 people in person, we were somewhere around 42. And some of them, well, somewhere around 50, and some of them wanted to come afternoon only, and some of them wanted to come morning only. So I wasn't close. So I was feeling good about that. Like I don't necessarily have to worry about that right now, because it was really almost split in half who wanted to be in person and who wanted to be remote.
Kalila, what elements of the in-person experience can you replicate for those students that remain virtual?
I guess the same, just trying to deliver the same quality of instruction, trying to be just as personable, answer questions to the people that are online, as well as the people who are in person, just being just as engaging with the people that are not there as the people who are in the building. We're not gonna have group work anyway, just because we're social distancing. So that's not gonna be an issue. So we should be able to almost mirror the service, hopefully, that we're offering in person.
How will your life coaches fit into your plan?
By just making weekly calls when we see people are dropping off or have not engaged remotely or in person, the same way that we always having individual meetings to try to find out what barriers and obstacles that our students have. Definitely trying to troubleshoot early, getting some individual meetings out with the new students, even if it's remotely, just to find out what type of obstacles or barriers that they may have. So just the same thing that we've always done, barrier removal.
We've got time for one more question. Does anybody have one final question? Justin?
Kalila, for your childcare staff, you might see a need for less staffing, I guess. How would you address that? And do you think there's other things you could use your childcare staff for to serve students rather than their kids?
We also did a survey of the number of kids that we'll have in a drop-in center. I think we're going to be staffed okay. Of course, we always have people drop off, and then we use our drop-in center people for, I have my YLCC manager. She actually can teach geometry. She's like an engineer in the country where she's from. And so I had her actually in term 5 helping out with the math classes while we were learning remotely. So I can always utilize her that way and have the attendance still be in the YLCC.
All right, we're going to take the next 2 minutes. I want you to reflect on what you've heard. You heard her original challenge. We've asked her a lot of questions. You've done fabulous, Kalila, in answering all of those. So think and reflect on what you've heard her say, and then I want you to reframe her challenge. So in the chat box, I want you to start with her challenge is, and then fill in the blank. So take just a couple of minutes to think about it, and then put that in the chat box.
Thank you, everybody. Help me think through it some more as I'm processing your questions. So thanks for that.
All right, we've got a few other folks. Okay, so for the sake of time, I'll go ahead and start. So Kalila's initial challenge referenced that she felt her challenge was a schedule that was needed for teachers as they are delivering blended learning. So they're delivering it in various ways. So after hearing the questions and answers, we've got the feedback of how will you leverage your team to support each other to ensure that you're not spreading yourself too thin during this time. Justin says it's her challenge was virtually replicating the effectiveness of face-to-face classes. Room 3, I think that's Marcus. Her challenge is identifying supports and professional development for staff to better engage students who choose to access our services remotely. Me, I'm not sure who that is. Her challenge is that she needs, oh, that is me. That's why it says me. Her challenge is that it's been a long day, guys. Her challenge is that she needs a school-wide engagement plan to address barriers to access, learning progress, and student and staff morale. Wendy says her challenge is meeting the needs of her students as well as her staff in a safe way. Jerry says her challenge is to develop a culture of buy-in from students and staff where it is we, not us, and them. Kathy says her challenge is balancing scheduling remote and in-person learning to optimize success for students and teachers. So are we all in agreement on what her challenge is in reading those? I'm going to say universally no. We all have taken a little bit of where we, our take on what her answers are. So the way that this process would normally go, and as I mentioned before, this is definitely an abbreviated version. Kalila, I'm going to offer, I don't know if anyone else is interested later on for us to continue this discussion to help you solve this. I will offer that up if anyone's interested in joining the group to finish. But this can normally take a few rounds. So where we would go after this is we would normally come back and we would all formulate additional questions. We may even ask each other questions versus just asking you. And so then we would continue this cycle until we were all in agreement on what your leadership challenge is. But one of the things I do want to point out is when you initially described yours, you were honed in on your scheduling, that you needed a schedule for your teachers. But everything you said in your answers talked about engagement, the challenge your students are having as it relates to their access, whether that be technological or just accepting of the new model. So you can see there that sometimes when we're framing our own problems, we think we know what our challenge really is. But when you start digging into it deeper with powerful questions, when Marcus and I were in Senior Leader Program, my challenge was a manager that I had working for me. His role had changed because the department had grown, and frankly, it had grown to the point where he could no longer be effective. The job had outgrown his skill set. And so when I went into the Senior Leader Program, I was like, here's my challenge, and I know everybody's going to tell me I need to get rid of this guy, and it's not my problem. But as people asked questions and I answered those, I came away with, and that's why that's my favorite question, what do you own in this? Because what I came away with is I owned that he hadn't been retrained for his new job. He had not been prepared for the skill set of his new job. And that was on me as his VP. So I just say that to say, sometimes we think we know what our challenge is, what our problem is, but we don't always. We've got our assumptions coming in. We've got our biases coming in. We've got our experiences, impacting that. So just keep that in mind. I don't know if you want to take us up on that, Kalila. If you do, let Marcus know. I'm glad, for us to continue this conversation. If the group's not available, we'll pull some other folks in, some fresh voices. But I hope that you all can see that even with just this first round, which normally it takes 2 to 3, you can see where we're kind of all over the place of what we really think her challenge is. but we're very far away from where she initially started. Marcus, I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
No, I agree. I think, and I'm probably going to exaggerate here because it feels like it's been forever ago. But when our group got together to solve a problem, it took us 2 or 3 months to identify. It felt like 2 or 3 months. I don't know if it was 2 or 3 weeks or not, but a lot of conversations going around this and around this and around this until we were all in agreement what our actual problem was and what our challenge statement was. And so it is a process, right? And I think I got tired of hearing it. Trust the process, but trust the process, right? You're gonna come to a better place of understanding, even if it's painful, right? And so, again, with Cindy, I would gladly engage in those conversations further if you guys would like. But I had a question for you, Cindy, if that's all right, and Brian as well. So as you see how this process works, and this is a pretty safe space, and I could see where you would go back to your organization and be willing to and wanting to try this and put this out there with your teams and those around you. But it's not always that easy, right? Because of all of the context that we talked about previously. So for those that want to take this back to their schools and their organizations, what advice would you give them when looking at how to implement something like this?
Cindy, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I will tell you that Cindy does this probably better than anyone on our staff right now. And she'll do this when we have conversations. She asks me those questions, and when she leaves, I have that thought of, I could have asked myself that question, but I was too close to it. But I have that, she got me. She did it again, and now I'm thinking about what do I own in it? But again, asking a bigger question, asking that powerful question about the situation I'm trying to address. So I would say what we did with having the team lead a powerful question session with our leadership, it helped. What I want is I want us to do that about 6 more times so that we get the impact that you two got of doing it over a 3-week, 3-month period to get to that true question and the true problem.
And sometimes it's short. Sometimes you can do it in a round or 2 in an afternoon. Sometimes it does take a little more time. You try a solution, it doesn't work. I will say that my team, so we've done it with our full leadership team for the company. I've done it in workforce development for all of my leadership, so that's manager and above. It has been exceptionally well received. You will have quiet voices, so one of the things I always make sure when we're in those sessions is that I encourage those people who are very vocal and have no qualms about speaking up, that they be respectful to include and encourage the voices that are quieter at the table. And as the facilitator, I always try and pull those folks out because a lot of times they have really great ideas. They're just their personality type. They're not one that's going to speak up. So I would say that's the only, and it's not negative. It's not negative at all, but just making sure that you know, the purpose behind this is hearing all the voices and hearing all the thoughts. So making sure that you really focus and encourage those who have quieter voices to be part of that. We were talking this morning, Danielle and Tammy and I, we were talking about having, drilling down even further into the organization. So we plan on having a session like this with our entire team. We're a much smaller team post-COVID or mid-COVID or wherever we are in this process. So we've got a team of about 50. And so we're going to be doing a session and breaking up into smaller groups. But what we've actually started doing is we use a tool online. It's called Monday.com. That's how we monitor all of our active projects. And so we've added a board on our Monday.com page that is nothing but action learning. So once we go through an action learning with whoever has the challenge, they post that on their Monday.com board, and then as they're developing solutions, they can bring in and get help from their peers. And that way we see what the progress is, and we don't let it just be an activity, but it's something that's alive and we're encouraging and seeing some progress from.
Appreciate that. I think we have about 4 minutes left. Any additional questions or clarifiers? And I would, before we jump into those questions, Kalila, you did a fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being such a willing.
That's a tough spot to be in. and be responsible for answering everyone's questions. You did fabulous. Lucia, your hand was raised. Did you have a question? Okay.
I was clapping
Was
for
clapping.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a raised hand.
I was
Excellent.
agreeing that she did a great job. I think this process was really good. It's better to actually do it than to hear about it. In the first part, when I was hearing about it, I was like, oh, this is intimidating. I might not even come back for the second part. But then I said, I'll come back. But it was very helpful, and I'm glad that we had an opportunity to do both.
Yeah. Excellent. I'll lead with that next time. Don't let this intimidate you. Come back for the second half. Yeah. All right. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate you being so active and engaged.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys, thank you.
Bye,
Oh,
Marcus.
Kalila, this is being recorded, and I have found that taking the questions back and just reflecting on those later are very helpful when you're formulating your plan. So I know you'll have access to that, and I think that'll be very helpful. Normally they're on sticky notes, but
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
See you guys.